The steel door slammed behind Eliza Reed with a finality that made her flinch. At 23, with delicate features, long blonde hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and eyes that had once sparkled with ambition, she looked wildly out of place in Clearwater Women's Correctional Facility. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on her slender frame, and her hands trembled slightly as the guard removed her handcuffs. "Processing's done. Welcome to your home for the next 5 years," the guard said, not unkindly, but with the detachment that came from years of watching women enter these walls. "Alvarez will show you to your cell." Officer Alvarez, a compact woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing, gestured for Eliza to follow. "Keep your head down. Don't make eye contact until you've figured out the dynamics, and for God's sake, don't show fear," she muttered as they walked through the main corridor. "They can smell it." Eliza nodded, swallowing hard as she took in her surroundings. The facility was cleaner than she had expected, but the air felt heavy with tension, desperation, and a strange, restless energy. Women in identical jumpsuits moved about with purpose, some in small groups, others alone and watchful. Many stopped to stare at the newcomer, assessing, calculating. "Fresh meat," someone called out, followed by a low chorus of laughter. "College. Girls slumming it with us common folk," another voice added. Eliza kept her gaze forward, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes upon her. Her crime had made the local news, the straight-A student who had been caught helping her boyfriend run a sophisticated drug operation through her university's campus. The prosecution had painted her as the mastermind, the calculating criminal who had used her clean image as cover. Only Eliza knew the truth. How fear, manipulation, and misplaced love had led her down this path. "Cell Block C, Cell 23, Officer Alvarez announced, stopping in front of a small cell with 2 metal bunks. "Top bunk is yours. Your cellmate is Washington. She's been here 3 years, doing 10 for armed robbery. She's not the worst you could get." As if summoned by her name, a tall, muscular woman with intricate tattoos covering her arms appeared in the doorway. Dominique Washington, 35, regarded Eliza with cold curiosity. "This the college girl? The one who moved product through campus?" Washington asked, her voice surprisingly soft despite her imposing presence. Officer Alvarez nodded. "Behave." "Washington, read institutional rules are posted on the wall. Meal times, yard times, work assignments, everything's on schedule here. You'll get your permanent work detail tomorrow. For now, get settled." With that, the officer left, leaving Eliza alone with her new cellmate. "Top bunk's yours," Washington said, echoing the officer's earlier statement. "Keep your area clean. I don't tolerate mess." Eliza nodded, placing her small bag of authorized belongings, standard-issue toiletries, 2 additional sets of underwear, and a thin paperback book she'd been allowed to bring, on the top bunk. "Thank you," she said quietly. Washington raised an eyebrow. "Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen what this place does to people like you." Over the next few days, Eliza learned the rhythms of prison life. She was assigned to the laundry, where the steam and monotony of folding hundreds of identical garments gave her too much time to think. She kept to herself, speaking only when spoken to, observing the complex social hierarchy that governed every aspect of life within these walls. There were the obvious gangs, divided mostly along racial lines, but there were other groups too, the religious women who found solace in the prison chapel, the older inmates who had been institutionalized. For so long, they couldn't imagine life outside, and the small group of educated women who ran the prison library and teaching programs. By the end of her first week, Eliza had caught the attention of Meredith Lang, the unofficial leader of D Block, a woman serving 25 years for murdering her abusive husband. Lang controlled the prison's contraband trade. Everything, from cigarettes to makeshift alcohol to the occasional smuggled-in phone. I hear you were quite the entrepreneur on the outside, Lang said, cornering Eliza in the laundry room. Two of her followers stood nearby, arms crossed. Someone with your business experience could be useful to me. Eliza felt her heart race, but kept her expression neutral. I'm just trying to serve my time quietly. Lang laughed, a harsh sound without humor. Nobody serves time quietly here, college girl. You're either useful or you're prey. She leaned in closer. And I think you're too smart to be prey. Before Eliza could respond, a voice cut through the tension. Lang, step back from the new girl. Officer Bennett, one of the few guards who seemed to genuinely care about rehabilitation, had entered the laundry room for a routine check. Lang smiled sweetly, all innocence. Just welcoming her to our community, officer. Bennett wasn't fooled. Move along, Reed, you okay? Yes, sir, Eliza responded automatically, though her hands were shaking as she returned to folding sheets. Later that night, unable to sleep on her thin mattress, Eliza listened to the sounds of the prison. Distant voices, occasional laughter that sounded more like pain, the rhythmic pacing of guards on their rounds. Washington was asleep below. Her, breathing deeply. I can't do this for 5 years, Eliza whispered to herself, tears finally breaking free after she'd held them back all week. Yes, you can. Washington's voice startled her, but not by hiding and hoping no one notices. You. That's not how survival works in here. Eliza leaned over the edge of her bunk. Then how does it work? Washington sat up, the moonlight from their small window illuminating half her face. You find your strength, the thing that makes you valuable. Not to Lang and her crew. That's a quick path to a longer sentence or worse, but to yourself, and maybe to others who need something this place tries to take away. What's that? Hope, Washington said simply. Purpose. A reason to wake up that isn't just counting. Down days. The next morning, while most inmates headed to the yard for recreation time, Eliza found herself drawn to the small prison library. It was barely more than a large closet, with sagging shelves holding an eclectic collection of donated books, many with pages missing or covers torn off. An older woman with silver hair and kind eyes sat at a desk, laboriously entering titles into an ancient computer. She looked up as Eliza entered. Can I help you find something? I'm not sure, Eliza admitted. I need something to occupy my mind. The woman smiled. I'm Helen. 20 years in for cooking the books at my accounting firm. You're the new girl, the college one. And Eliza, she replied, surprised at how good it felt to be addressed by her name rather than college girl or Reed. What did you study before? Helen gestured vaguely, encompassing their shared circumstance. Education. I wanted to be a teacher. Helen's eyes lit up. We have a literacy program here. Many women come in without basic reading skills. The waiting list for tutors is long. For the first time since arriving, Eliza felt a flicker of something other than fear. Are inmates allowed to teach? With supervision and approval, yes. It takes time to get cleared, but Helen tilted her head, studying Eliza. It gives you a purpose, and in here, that's no small thing. That evening, as Eliza entered the dining hall for dinner, she noticed a young woman struggling to read the posted menu. Barely 20, with haunted eyes and nervous movements, she was clearly new to the system. It's meatloaf tonight, Eliza said gently, or a vegetarian option of beans and rice. The girl looked up, startled, then embarrassed. Thanks, she mumbled. Eliza, if you ever want help with reading, I'd be happy to— A harsh laugh interrupted her. Lang had appeared, flanked by her usual followers. Already recruiting, college girl? Didn't take you long to find your hustle. It's not a hustle, Eliza replied, surprising herself with her steady voice. It's just reading. Lang stepped closer. Everything's a hustle in here. You think you're better than us because you can read fancy books? Because you went to college before you became a criminal like the rest of us? Dishkum. The dining hall had gone quiet, everyone watching the confrontation. Even the guards seemed to be holding back, curious to see how the new inmate would handle herself. Eliza felt something shift inside her, not fear, but a strange, calm certainty. "No," she said clearly, "I think I'm exactly like everyone else in here. Making mistakes doesn't make us less worthy of dignity or opportunity." Lang's eyes narrowed. "Pretty words. Let's see if they protect you when—" "That's enough, Lang." Washington had appeared beside Eliza, her presence commanding respect even from Lang. "The girl's under my wing now. Back off." Lang hesitated, then smiled coldly. "Suit yourself. But remember, college girl, everyone has something to lose in here, even you." As Lang walked away, Washington gave Eliza a measured look. "If you're going to stand up, be ready for what comes next. This place doesn't reward courage. It punishes it." Eliza nodded, understanding that she had just crossed some invisible line. But for the first time since the steel door had closed behind her, she felt something like purpose stirring within her. In this place designed to break spirits, perhaps her path forward wasn't about keeping her head down after all. It was about lifting it up and helping others to do the same. The following week brought Eliza her first taste of prison routine. Each day was structured down to the minute: wake up at 6 a.m., breakfast at 7, work assignments by 8, lunch at noon, afternoon programs or yard time, dinner at 6, and lockdown. By 10 p.m., the monotony was both comforting and maddening. Her protection under Washington's wing came with unspoken expectations. Washington didn't demand anything outright, but Eliza understood that debts were currency in prison. Sooner or later, payment would be expected. "You want to start a reading program?" Washington asked one evening, watching Eliza scribble ideas. In a small notebook she'd requested from Helen in the library, Eliza looked up, surprised that Washington had noticed. "Just thinking about it." Helen said, "There's a process to get approved as a tutor." Washington snorted softly. "Process? Everything in here is a process, designed to make you give up before you start." "I'm not going to give up," Eliza said quietly. Something like respect flickered in Washington's eyes. "Lang won't like it. She runs the current tutoring racket. Charges commissary items for help with paperwork and letters." "That's not teaching, that's exploitation," Eliza replied, then caught herself. "But I'm not trying to step on anyone's territory." "Everything here is someone's territory," Washington said. "But maybe it's time for some new boundaries to be drawn." The next day, Eliza approached Officer Bennett after her laundry shift. "Sir, I'd like to apply to be a literacy tutor. Helen in the library said there's a program." Bennett studied her for a moment. "You're still new, Reed. Usually we require at least 6 months of good behavior before inmates can participate in peer education programs." "I understand," Eliza replied, trying to hide her disappointment. "I'll ask again in 6 months." As she turned to leave, Bennett called after her. "There is a volunteer position available in the library, shelving books and helping with inventory. Not teaching, but it's a start, if you're interested." Eliza's face lit up. "Yes, sir, I'm very interested." Word traveled fast in prison. By dinner, everyone knew that the college girl had scored a coveted library position typically reserved for long-term, well-behaved inmates. Lang's glare from across the cafeteria could have melted steel. "You've made an enemy," Washington observed as they ate the bland prison food. "I didn't mean to," Eliza said, pushing peas around her tray. "Doesn't matter what you meant. Lang Sees you as competition now. She controls information flow through her tutoring service. Inmates pay her to write letters, read legal documents, communicate with the outside. You represent a threat to that. Eliza put down her fork. All I want to do is help people learn to read. Washington gave her a look that was almost pitying. Nobody does just one thing in here. Every action has multiple purposes. Lang knows. Would that, she's wondering what your angle is. I don't have an angle. Then you better get one, Washington advised, or at least understand the game you've stumbled into. The library position began the following day. For 3 hours each afternoon, Eliza worked alongside Helen, learning the simple cataloging system and helping inmates find materials. Most came looking for romance novels or legal texts, but occasionally someone would whisper a request for basic readers or alphabet books, shame evident in their downcast eyes. On her 3rd day, Eliza was shelving books when a young woman approached her hesitantly. It was the same girl from the cafeteria who had struggled with the menu. "They said you might help me," she whispered, glancing nervously around. "With reading. I got a letter from my kid, but..." Tears welled in her eyes. "I can't read what it says." Eliza's heart twisted. "What's your name?" "Tasha," the girl replied. "Been in 8 months. Got another 16 to go. My boy is 6. His foster. Mom helps him write to me, but I can help you read it," Eliza offered. "And if you want, I can show you how to write back to him." Relief flooded Tasha's face. "For real? What's it gonna cost me?" "Nothing," Eliza said firmly. "Just your time and patience." Tasha looked skeptical. "Everyone wants something in here." Eliza thought about Washington's advice. Maybe she did need an angle. Actually, there is something. "If anyone asks why we're meeting, tell them you're helping me adjust to prison life, teaching me the ropes." Tasha's expression cleared with understanding. "So you save face, looking like you're getting help instead of giving it. Smart." They arranged to meet during yard time the next day. What started as simply reading Tasha's letter evolved into a basic lesson using children's books from the library's small collection. Tasha was a quick study, eager to learn now that shame wasn't standing in her way. By the end of the week, 3 more women had approached Eliza discreetly, asking for help. She created a simple system. They would meet in different areas of the yard or common room, appearing to be casually socializing while actually working. Through basic reading exercises, Eliza designed based on materials she could access through the library. Helen noticed, of course, but said nothing directly. Instead, she began setting aside appropriate books and even managed to discover some old workbooks in a storage closet that she passed to Eliza. Officer Bennett observed too, his expression unreadable as he watched Eliza's growing circle of friends. Once he walked by as Eliza was helping an older woman named Carmen sound out words in a letter from her grandson. He paused, then continued his rounds without comment. 3 weeks into her impromptu teaching program, Eliza returned to her cell to find Washington unusually tense. "Lang knows what you're doing," Washington said without preamble. "She's losing clients to your free service." Eliza felt a chill. "What's she planning?" "Nothing yet. She's watching, waiting for you to make a mistake." Washington hesitated. "There's something else. Word is, Officer Diaz is on Lang's payroll. He's been asking questions about your library access, suggesting you might be using it to pass messages or contraband." "That's ridiculous. I know what you're doing," Washington interrupted. "But perception is reality in here. You're building influence, whether you mean to or not." Eliza sat heavily on the edge of her bunk. "What should I do?" "Be careful. Document everything. And..." Washington looked uncomfortable. "Consider bringing your operation into the open. Apply formally for that teaching position. Get official sanction. Bennett said I needed 6 months of good behavior first." Washington gave her a measured look. "Bennett likes what he's seeing. He might make an exception if you approach him the right way. The next day, Eliza requested a meeting with Bennett, who listened silently as she explained what she'd been doing. "Unofficial teaching without authorization is against regulations," he said when she finished. "I know, sir. That's why I'm telling you now." Eliza met his gaze directly. "I'd like to do this properly. These women deserve a real chance to learn." Bennett was quiet for a long moment. "There's a classroom space that's used for GED prep 3 days a week. It's available Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4 p.m. if you can get Helen to supervise. As a volunteer, I might be able to get approval for a basic literacy class." Eliza could hardly believe it. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet," Bennett warned. "This puts a target on your back with certain elements, and the administration will be watching closely. One mistake, and it's over." The first official literacy class was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Helen agreed to supervise, and Eliza spent hours preparing materials, creating different levels of exercises for the varying abilities of her students. Word spread quickly, and by Tuesday afternoon, 12 women had signed up. As Eliza set up the classroom under Helen's watchful eye, the door opened. Lang stood there, flanked by 2 of her followers. "Room for 3 more in your little school, teacher?" Lang asked with a dangerous smile. Eliza felt her stomach drop, but kept her expression neutral. "Of course, everyone's welcome." Lang and her companions took seats at the back of the room. When the other students arrived, many visibly tensed, seeing Lang present. Tasha shot Eliza a worried look. Despite her racing heart, Eliza began the class as planned, dividing students into small groups based on their current reading levels. When she approached Lang's table, the woman smiled coldly. "Oh, we're not here to learn, teacher. We're just observing, quality control, you might say." Throughout the 2-hour session, Lang watched silently, her gaze calculating. The other students worked diligently despite the tense atmosphere, and by the end, even some of the most struggling readers had made small breakthroughs that left them smiling. As the class dispersed, Lang lingered, approaching Eliza while Helen was distracted helping a student. "Impressive little show," Lang said softly. "You've got them all believing you're some kind of prison saint." "I'm just teaching them to read," Eliza replied, keeping her voice steady. Lang leaned closer. "Here's what I see. A college girl building her own power base, creating loyal followers who'll owe her favors. Smart strategy. But you're playing a game you don't understand yet." "It's not a game to me. Everything's a game in here." Lang's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Think about what you're offering. Hope, skills, attention. Those are valuable commodities. You're giving them away for free now, but soon you'll realize their worth." Before Eliza could respond, Officer Bennett entered the room. Lang stepped back, nodding politely to the officer before sauntering out. "Any problems?" Bennett asked, surveying the room. "No, sir," Eliza said, though her hands trembled slightly. As she gathered her materials, "Everything went fine." That night, lying awake in her bunk, Eliza pondered Lang's words. Was she unconsciously building power, creating obligations? The thought troubled her. She had entered this with pure intentions, but nothing stayed pure in prison. "You're thinking too loud," Washington commented from the lower bunk. "Lang thinks I'm building some kind of power base." Washington was quiet for a moment. "You are, but not the way she thinks." She sat up, so Eliza could see her face in the dim light. "There's power that comes from fear and control. That's Lang's way. Then there's power that comes from giving people something they desperately need. That's what you're doing." "I don't want power," Eliza whispered. "Tough," Washington replied bluntly, "because you've got it now. The question is what you'll do with it." As weeks passed, the literacy program grew. Bennett arranged for a second weekly session, and Helen managed to secure additional materials through a community donation program. 20 women now attended regularly, their progress slow but steady. Eliza noticed changes in her students beyond their reading skills. They walked differently, spoke more confidently. Tasha had begun helping newer readers, showing a natural talent for teaching. Carmen had started writing regular letters to her grandson, proudly addressing the envelopes herself. Lang continued to attend sporadically, always watching, never participating. The tension remained, but it had evolved into something like a Cold War, both sides cautious, measuring each move. Then came the incident that would change everything. During a routine contraband search, officers discovered a makeshift knife hidden in the library's reference section. Officer Diaz brought it directly to Bennett, suggesting loudly that someone with regular library access must have placed it there. Eliza was called to the administrative offices, where the warden, a stern woman who ran the facility with rigid efficiency, questioned her for over an hour. Despite her protestations of innocence, Eliza was placed on probation, her library privileges revoked pending investigation. Returning to her cell block, she could feel the shift in atmosphere immediately. Inmates who had been friendly now avoided eye contact. Whispers followed her down the corridor. Only her core students stood by her, Tasha even boldly sitting with her at meals, despite the social risk. Washington remained steadfast as well, her presence a deterrent to anyone considering taking advantage of Eliza's suddenly precarious position. Lang's behind this, Washington said that night in their cell. Too neat, too convenient. I know, Eliza replied, but I can't prove it. Washington studied her. So what now, teacher? Give up? Let her win? Despite everything, Eliza felt a smile forming. No, if I can't go to the library, maybe the library can come to us. News of Lang's participation in the literacy program spread through Clearwater like wildfire. The first day she attended class, conversation stopped as she entered the room. Lang, ever conscious of her image, simply took a seat in the front row and pulled out the assigned materials. Quite the power move, Washington commented that evening. Front row where everyone can see her. I think she wants them to see, Eliza replied. She's signaling a shift. The shift became more apparent in the days that followed. Women previously, aligned with Lang's faction, began joining the classes. Others, who had been fence-sitting, unsure which way the political winds were blowing, signed up as well. Within 2 weeks, enrollment had doubled. Mr. Jennings, the education coordinator, was both pleased and overwhelmed by the surge. We need more materials, more structure, he told Eliza during their weekly planning session, and frankly, more teachers. One instructor for 30 students isn't effective. This created the opening Eliza had been waiting for. I've been thinking about a peer teaching model, she proposed. More advanced students working with beginners, under supervision. The idea gained approval, and soon a tiered system emerged. Eliza worked directly with advanced students, including Lang, who showed genuine talent for explaining complex concepts in simple terms. These students, in turn, mentored beginners, creating a pyramid of learning that touched nearly a third of the prison population. Lang kept her word, dismantling her exploitative services and redirecting her considerable organizational skills toward the program. Her business instincts remained sharp. She developed a point system for participation that worked alongside the official good behavior credits, creating additional incentives that resonated with the prison population. Women need multiple reasons to show up, she explained to Eliza during one of their now regular strategy sessions. Some care about early release, others need immediate rewards, some just want recognition. Lang's insights proved valuable, but the partnership remained uneasy. Years of prison politics had taught both women caution, and trust came slowly, tested constantly by the pressures of their environment. 3 months into their collaboration, the first major challenge arrived: Budget cuts threatened all non-essential prison programs, including education. The warden called Eliza to her office to deliver the news. "The literacy program may need to scale back," she explained. "Fewer hours, fewer materials. Mr. Jennings' position is being reduced to part-time." Eliza felt the ground shifting beneath her carefully constructed world. "Ma'am, this program is showing results. Women are reading independently, helping with prison operations that require literacy, preparing better for parole hearings." "I'm aware," the warden replied. "Unfortunately, the state legislature doesn't share your perspective on what constitutes essential services." When Eliza shared the news with Lang, the older woman was oddly calm. "We need data," she said simply, "numbers that prove value." "Mr. Jennings has been tracking attendance and basic skills improvement," Eliza offered. Lang shook her head. "Bureaucrats don't care about educational outcomes. We need economic impact, cost savings to the prison." Together, they began gathering information. How many fewer staff hours were spent helping inmates with paperwork? How many fewer grievances were filed due to misunderstandings? How the improved morale had reduced disciplinary incidents. Lang's years of operating within the prison economy gave her insight into metrics the administration would find compelling. When they presented their findings to the warden, she was visibly impressed. "This is thorough," she acknowledged. "It might be enough to protect the core program, though we'll still face cutbacks." "There's another possibility," Eliza suggested: community involvement. The idea took shape quickly, inviting volunteer tutors from local colleges and literacy organizations to supplement the program, bringing in donated materials, even arranging for limited internet access for educational software under strict supervision. The warden authorized a pilot of the community connection with careful security protocols. The first outside volunteers arrived 1 month later. 3 retired teachers and 2 college students, all thoroughly vetted and trained in prison protocols. Their presence brought new energy to the program and, crucially, created witnesses to its impact. Citizens who would return to the community with stories about the women of Clearwater and their determination to change their lives through education. One volunteer, a journalism professor named Diana, took particular interest in the program's structure. "This is remarkable," she told Eliza after observing several sessions. "Inmates teaching inmates, creating a community of learning in the most challenging environment imaginable. Have you considered documenting this?" The suggestion led to a newsletter, written and produced entirely by program participants, chronicling their educational journeys. Initially circulated only within the prison, it eventually found its way to local educational institutions and even state legislators through the volunteer network. Throughout this growth, Eliza continued working one-on-one with Lang on teaching methodologies. True to her word, Lang proved an apt student, absorbing pedagogical concepts quickly and adapting them to the prison environment with intuitive skill. "You could have been a master teacher," Eliza observed one day, after watching Lang patiently guide a struggling student through a difficult reading passage. Lang's smile held a hint of sadness. "In another life, maybe." She gathered her materials. "Instead, I'll settle for being a decent one in this life." As months passed, the program's success attracted attention beyond Clearwater's walls. A state education official visited, followed by a representative from a national prison reform organization. Articles appeared in educational journals and even local newspapers, highlighting the innovative approach and measurable outcomes. The publicity brought scrutiny as well. Conservative lawmakers questioned the resources being wasted on criminals, while prison officials from other facilities expressed skepticism about the program's transferability to their institutions. Through it all, Eliza and Lang maintained their focus on the women in their classroom. Every new reader, every woman who wrote her first letter home without help, every successful GED test became a victory to be celebrated. 1 year after Eliza had first entered Clearwater, the warden called her into the office again. This time Lang was invited as well. "The State Department of Corrections has taken notice of your program," the warden announced without preamble. "They're interested in implementing similar initiatives in other facilities." Eliza and Lang exchanged surprised glances. "They've requested that the two of you develop training materials for other institutions," the warden continued. "This would be officially recognized work, with a small stipend deposited to your commissary accounts." The opportunity was unprecedented. Inmates being asked to contribute to statewide educational policy, their expertise acknowledged and valued. "There's more," the warden added. "Reed, the parole board has reviewed your case file, including your work here. They've recommended a sentence reduction based on extraordinary rehabilitation efforts. If approved, you could be released in 18 months rather than 4 more years. Eliza felt her head spin with the news. Early release had seemed an impossible dream. Now, suddenly, freedom had a timeline, a tangible horizon. Later, alone in the library where they now had permission to use a computer for curriculum development, Lang regarded Eliza with an unreadable expression. 18 months, she mused. You'll be gone while I still have years left. The program will continue, Eliza assured her. You'll be leading it by then. Lang nodded slowly. That was always the plan, wasn't it? For this to outlast both of us? It has to, Eliza replied simply. The need doesn't disappear when we do. Their working relationship had evolved over the months. Not quite friendship, but a partnership based on mutual respect and shared purpose. They still disagreed often, their approaches to problems fundamentally different, but those differences had become complementary rather than oppositional. What will you do? Lang asked. When you're out? It was a question Eliza had been asking herself with increasing frequency. Finish my degree. Keep teaching, somehow. She smiled. Maybe. Even work with ex-offenders. I hear they make determined students. Lang's laugh was genuine, some more than others. As they returned to their work, developing modules that would help other prisons implement literacy programs, Eliza reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From terrified new inmate to respected teacher, from Lang's adversary to her collaborator. The path had been neither straight nor easy, but it had led to something meaningful, not just for herself, but for hundreds of women who would pass through these walls. 6 months later, Eliza stood before the parole board, answering questions about her original crime, her time at Clearwater, and her plans upon release. Lang had helped her prepare, playing the role of skeptical board member in practice sessions, pushing Eliza to articulate her transformation clearly and convincingly. When asked about the literacy program, Eliza spoke not of her own contributions, but of the women who had embraced the opportunity to learn, despite every obstacle. These women weren't just learning to read, she explained to the board. They were reclaiming parts of themselves, dignity, independence, possibility. I came to Clearwater thinking I'd lost my chance to be a teacher. Instead, I found the most important classroom I could imagine. 1 week later, Eliza received official notification. Her sentence reduction had been approved. She would be released in 3 months. The news spread quickly through the prison. Women from the literacy program organized a celebration, modest by outside standards, but meaningful within the constraints of prison life. Cards were handmade, with carefully written messages from students showcasing their new skills. Even the warden stopped by briefly, offering rare public acknowledgement of Eliza's achievement. Washington, who had watched the entire journey from their shared cell, presented Eliza with a book the library had special ordered at her request, a comprehensive guide to programs supporting education for ex-offenders. For your next chapter, Washington said simply. Lang's response was more complex. Initially distant after the news broke, she eventually approached Eliza with a proposal. "We need to ensure continuity," she said, all business. Documentation, transition plans, mentoring the next tier of peer teachers. They spent the following weeks preparing the program for Eliza's departure, training other participants to take over key responsibilities. The work was practical but also emotional. A gradual process of letting go, of trusting others to carry forward what they had built. During their final official meeting, Lang presented Eliza with a folder containing detailed plans for program expansion, including proposals for creative writing classes, public speaking training, and even a basic business skills workshop. "For when you visit," Lang explained, "as a community volunteer after, the assumption that their paths would cross again, that Eliza would choose to return to this place voluntarily, carried more meaning than any farewell speech." On her last day at Clearwater, Eliza made the rounds, saying goodbye to the women who had been part of her journey. Tasha, now a confident reader who helped run day-to-day program operations. Carmen, who had recently received her GED after 2 years of study. Dozens of others whose lives had intertwined with hers in this unlikeliest of communities. Washington hugged her briefly, uncharacteristically emotional. "Don't look back," she advised, "but don't forget either." The final goodbye was with Lang, who waited until the last possible moment before Eliza's processing out. "I have something for you," Lang said, handing her a small envelope. "Don't open it until you're outside." As Eliza walked through the series of security checkpoints that would lead to freedom, she clutched the envelope along with her few possessions. The heavy doors closed behind her, one by one, each clanging sound marking her transition back to the world she had left behind years earlier. Finally, standing in the bright sunlight of the prison parking lot, waiting for the commuter bus that would take her to her court-approved halfway house, Eliza opened Lang's envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age, carefully preserved. It showed a much younger Lang with a group of children, all holding books and smiling widely. The small community reading program she had mentioned. But there was something else Eliza hadn't noticed before. In the background of the photo, partially visible, was a familiar logo and name. Horizon House, Building New Beginnings. Beneath the clipping was a note in Lang's elegant handwriting. Horizon House still exists. They work with ex-offenders now. They need teachers. You brought light to this dark place. Don't stop shining. Eliza stared at the clipping, understanding the gift Lang had given her. Not just a potential job lead, but a thread connecting past to future. Prison to freedom. One woman's fall to another's redemption. As the bus appeared on the day of Horizon, Eliza tucked the envelope carefully into her pocket. She had entered Clearwater thinking her life was over, her dreams shattered by her mistakes. She was leaving with a new purpose, forged in the most unlikely crucible. Behind her stood the prison, its walls housing the women who had become her. Students, her colleagues, her community. Within those walls, even now, women were gathering in the classroom, opening books, forming letters, finding their voices. Some transformations happened in dramatic moments, steel doors opening, freedom suddenly granted. Others occurred more slowly, word by word, day by day, in the quiet space between who you were and who you might become. Eliza boarded the bus, ready to carry forward what she had learned from the women of Clearwater, that education wasn't just about literacy or skills or credentials. It was about possibility, about seeing beyond current circumstances to what might yet be. And that was a lesson worth teaching on either side of the prison walls.